That looks like we've got everyone in now. Welcome everybody to the first update for the year on where Manna Institute is up to, and thank you all for just holding on for a few minutes while we worked out the technology across different sites. This is being recorded, as you will have seen. So obviously for people that can't be here, can watch back later and just hear where we're up to. It's only a fairly brief update, and we can have questions later. So if you've got anything that comes up during the presentation, then feel free to pop any questions in the chat, and I can go through those at the end. That would be fabulous. And if you don't mind, everybody putting themselves on mute if you haven't done so thus far. So welcome to 2024. It's somehow almost the end of February, and what happened? We're very busy, obviously, with all of the activities. So I'm going to run through a bit of where we've got to and where we're going, and remind everybody the sorts of activities they can get involved with, and some upcoming activities that you might not be aware of so far. So for some reason my little thing's not moving, so I will move like this. So of course, as always, starting with an acknowledgement of country, and our Manna Institute First Nations Advisory Group designed this acknowledgement for us, because obviously we are a virtual institute coming from across the country, and so we respectfully acknowledge the First Nations peoples as the continuing custodians of this continent, and pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. The Institute honours their rich cultural heritage, beliefs and enduring relationship to the lands and communities in which we all live, learn and work. And I'm joining today from the beautiful Gumbaynggirr lands of the mid-north coast of New South Wales. So on this busy slide, I don't expect any of you to read it all, but I wanted to put it up to remind us broadly of our mission, and that is that we're focused on improving the health and economic outcomes related to mental ill health in rural, regional and remote communities across the country. We want to obviously become dynamic, responsive and productive and sustainable in a way in which we can draw on our diverse expertise across the regional university network members, but also more broadly, and also really importantly grow individual career trajectories and work collectively in a capacity building and translation focus. So simply put, in a Venn diagram, we work collaboratively. So there's obviously researchers, we have our lived experience First Nations and community advisory groups that come together, and we have industry and service provider partners, and together looking really towards developing solutions to improve mental health in regional Australia. And it's particularly important to focus on workforce, and there's obviously a lot of conversation always about workforce in relation to the mental health workforce, both in frontline clinical services and the community more broadly. But a really important part of that is also the mental health research workforce, given that it is research and evidence-based that informs practice and feeding back into that loop. So we form a really important part of that research workforce and the mental health workforce more broadly. So a really quick run through of achievements. If you look back on this, you'll be able to see in more detail each of the activities. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I wanted to really acknowledge the hard work that's gone through so far, as well as what we've got to do in the future. So in 2022, we received funding from the federal government under the Regional Research Collaboration Scheme to set up what was then known as the Regional Australian Mental Health Research and Training Institute, and rebranded and launched as Manna Institute in October 2022. We've then had a busy 2023 where we gained a lot of people into the Institute. We set up our First Nations and our lived experience advisory groups. We had senior researchers join us. We launched our e-newsletter Trunkline as a way of making sure that people are really aware of what's going on. We launched our research streams, and we moved through a number of grant applications that were submitted and several that were successful. We joined a group called the Australian Architects of Mental Health, and they're a group of 6 other research translation centres across Australia, focused on mental health from a variety of different perspectives. And importantly, we launched our community of practice for our higher degree research students. And so there's about 18 or so students now regularly joining those structured sessions, as well as some shut up and write sessions. So that's really fantastic to see our newer researchers also really actively participating. And from there, we of course move into 2024. And we've got around 75 researchers who are actively contributing in some way to Manna Institute, which is really exciting, particularly for regional university researchers, where often we're working on our own. We might be in a discipline group that focus on other things, and our passion is mental health. So it's a fantastic way to bring people together across vast distances, and to look for new opportunities working collaboratively across those areas. So we've been pretty busy, but when we look at our timeline for our original funding, there's still a lot of green to go. So there's a lot more activity happening. We've got a lot more to focus on this year. And there's some really exciting initiatives now that we've bedded down some of our processes. And that's really what I wanted to update you all on today. We're really concerned too, obviously, about the future sustainability of Manna Institute. We can't put in all of this work and just see this fantastic opportunity, head off into the past. We were really disappointed in the Myf announcement at the end of last year, where the federal government decided to terminate the Regional Research Collaboration Grant Scheme. This was really disappointing because in the initial funding round, there was an option for a 2-year extension to our initial 3-year funding if we were a high-performing collaboration. And whilst we have been high-performing and the department has been really pleased with our progress, there was obviously a change of government in that time, and the new government isn't continuing with that scheme. So that's obviously really disappointing to us, because that was a funding opportunity for us that, where we had previously been successful. But nevertheless, we won't be knocked down by that, and we'll continue to look forward to other opportunities. And there's obviously the large institute level grant schemes like the Centre for Research Excellence and Synergy Applications, for example. But we're also working in smaller teams, not necessarily across the whole institute, on a whole host of different Category 1 and Category 3 grants through the year. So that obviously will continue as we move forward as well. What I'd really like to encourage people to look out for is obviously the sorts of ways that you can get involved and the ways that you can hear about what we're working on. So, for example, as I mentioned, Trunkline, which is our monthly e-newsletter, please sign up for that if you haven't. It's usually 4 or 5 pages. We try and vary the information so you get a bit of an update on what's happening for us, what's happening in the broader sector, as well as spotlighting some of the activities of our researchers. And that's a great way to just keep up with who's working with us, people that you might be interested in meeting with that you're not aware of yet, and some of the other activities that might be coming up that might be beyond Manna, but that we hear about and think might be of interest to you. We also hold our monthly webinars. So they've previously been hosted by Sarah Wayland and Jasleen Chabra, who's from Federation University. One of our early career researchers is going to take that over from next month. And we have a number of upcoming topics, including disability. The impact of the environment didn't get its own bullet point there, but should have. Workforce. We're going to launch our international statement on mental health research in regional communities that several of you will have been involved in. We're looking at diversity and inclusion, and a host of other topics. And if there's a particular topic that you want to have explored in those webinars, we'd love to hear from you. We generally try and have at least one Manna researcher on a panel, but then we ask researchers from other universities, people from peak bodies or from industry to come and have sort of in conversation with, so presenting on the same topic, but from different points of view. So if there is a topic, we'd love to hear from you, or if there's a speaker that you'd really like to see featured in our webinars, let us know. Also, keep an eye out for our first short course workshop, which will be on program evaluation. Several of you will already be involved in evaluation programs. Maybe you've done some and thought you could do better. Maybe you're interested in doing program evaluations with industry partners who you work with. And this short course workshop is an opportunity to really think about the ways in which to do program evaluation, high quality evaluations, the way in which you can use those to further the evidence base, and particularly to build relationships with industry, which is a fantastic way then of looking towards future research projects as well. So keep your eyes out for that. In terms of our research streams, so last year we went through a process of looking at the sorts of expertise that we have across Manna Institute. So rather than just sort of creating these out of thin air, we've looked at where do we already have capacity? Where do we have some momentum so that we can also have some success and some early runs on the board? So we have 4 research streams that are already very active, and we've had some grant success within those streams. So we have our child, youth and family stream. We have a stream around physical activity and mental health. The third around health and wellbeing in later life, and a fourth around distress and suicide prevention. But this doesn't cover by any stretch of the imagination all of the areas that are important to regional mental health. So we know that there's some further tributaries to these streams, particularly around the mental health workforce as a really important key delivery of mental health services across regional Australia. And that, as I said earlier, they're both at the clinical right through to the peer workforce ends of the continuum. There's obviously a need to look at addictions. It's a problem and challenge across a problem for service providers and a challenge for individuals and families across regional Australia. And so whilst we don't have a lot of expertise in addictions, we certainly have partners with a lot of expertise. So we might, for example, look at the ways we can feed into others' work in the area of addictions, coming particularly from the regional perspective. Diversity and inclusion is obviously really important, and that sort of, again, spans a massive continuum through disability, through LGBTIQA+, through different cultural backgrounds, new arrivals into Australia, a whole host of different and quite diverse needs. And we have some emerging and different levels of expertise across that huge, broad area. And then, of course, the changing environment. And this is something that we had as a cross-cutting theme right from the very beginning of Manna Institute. None of us can ignore the impact of the environment, and particularly environmental change and disasters on regional communities and the mental health of individuals within regional communities. So they're areas that we're looking at actively as well. The other part of Manna Institute that's super important and shouldn't get forgotten when we're thinking about just research projects and the way that we can develop up new projects or build on research trajectories is about career development. We want to see that our HDR students have really clear ECR and MCR trajectories where they're moving through that early and mid-career of their research trajectory, and they're staying interested in regional mental health. So rather than losing the brain drain to the city, we really want to make sure that there's really clear trajectories for people. No matter where you're up to in your career, there's still more to go, or there's giving back if you're more towards the end of your career. So, as I said, we have our research student community of practice. This is open to mental health research students. So you don't have to have a RTP scholarship from Manna Institute or one of the Manna Institute partners. You could be a research student at any university in Australia who has an interest in regional mental health, and we'd love you to join. We also, we have facilitated sessions within the community of practice where we have senior researchers or mid-career researchers coming along and facilitating a discussion around a particular methodology, it may be, or research issue. And we'd really, really love to hear from senior researchers on ideas that they might have to provide seminars and workshops to our earliest career students. They also hold shut up and write sessions where we all know it's really easy to get distracted by emails and a plethora of other things that come across our desk. So those shut up and write sessions are fantastic peer group pressure to really just get on and focus on one activity at a time, but also provide that development of relationships and a peer group for our community of research students. This year, we'll also be introducing Manna Institute Research Mentoring Scheme. So within this, we will have our MCRs and our senior researchers mentoring ECRs and junior researchers. So there, what we'll see is our ECRs working in small mentoring groups with a senior researcher or with a mid-career researcher. And because often some of the topics that are important at that early career stage are important across, they're commonly important, but also a lot of the ECR journey is about building your network. So you might have some networks that came from, say, your supervision team when you're doing your own PhD. But beyond that, how do you build your networks? And again, going back to that piece of isolation when you're working at a regional university. So in those small mentoring groups, topics will be agreed upon and across the 12-month period. For mid-career researchers, it's a little bit different. Often you're looking towards, what's the next step? You might be, for example, a senior lecturer or maybe just on the cusp of associate professor. What are the next sort of steps for you, and where do you want to both expand your leadership as well as your research career? So for our MCRs, we'll be looking at one-to-one mentoring. So please look out for expressions of interest, both to become a mentor or a mentee, and you can be both depending on where you're up to in your career. So please have a look at that. In my own personal experience, I have to say that I've gained more out of mentoring people than anything else I think that I do. Certainly being a mentor is a great privilege, and being mentored is a great privilege. And there's mentors that come and go in your life. Some stay for longer and some stay for shorter periods of time. But these sorts of schemes build those networks, and you then get to tap into the networks that your mentor has. And that's like a fast track to relationship building. Again, super important when we can't always get together face to face. We can't always have the opportunity to meet people, or we might not have the courage or skills to reach out to somebody and ask them to start to work with us and build those relationships together. So please look out for those expressions of interest and certainly join up. Our mentoring scheme is open, just like our community of practice, to anybody interested in regional mental health. You don't need to be funded by Manna Institute in any way. You can join in that mentoring scheme, whether you are a mentor or a mentee. Each of our lead investigators, of whom there is one from each university, has a particular area of responsibility. And I hope that's a little bit larger text on your screens than my small laptop. But what you'll see is that each of us now has quite defined responsibilities. If you're not sure who to contact, always just contact Manna Institute at une.edu.au, and either Liz or Kat will be very happy to help direct your query in the right direction. But certainly having a bit of a sense of who is doing which kind of activity is really useful. So this slide obviously shows myself as director. My main focus is our future sustainability and keeping us going from here, but I'm also leading on our distress and suicide prevention research stream. Sonia March from the University of Southern Queensland is at the moment developing up our first short course and is mentoring our child, youth and family research stream. Matt Summers, who is a fairly new join to our CI team from the University of the Sunshine Coast, is looking at across all of our research streams and mentoring those research streams and looking at those developing trajectories. Dixie from Federation is running our mentoring program. And so please look out for the mentoring information that will come out from Dixie. Christian from Southern Cross University has been working really hard on working across the 4 position papers that will be being released over the coming months. These offer a Manna Institute position on topics that are cross-cutting themes across Manna Institute. Christian's also going to be coordinating a grant review process and support coordination. So if you're thinking about putting in a grant, whether it be any of the categories really, a competitive grant, and you want to have that reviewed in some way, get in early and have a chat with Christian, who can link you up with one or more researchers who have had success in that scheme previously for critical review of your grant. And this is certainly something that we see the group of 8 doing across all the grant schemes, and obviously leads to a much higher percent of successful grants. So Christian will be coordinating that. Chris Doran from Central Queensland University has been leading our community industry and research data asset and toolkit. So this is really where we're trying to draw together existing data to help map and plan the sort of research that's important to different regions across Australia. Russell from Charles Sturt University has been leading on our international statement on regional mental health and working with community, and will chair our Manna Institute Conference Committee for 2024, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But again, if you're unclear who to contact, Liz and Kat are your people, and just via that generic email address, mannainstitute@une.edu.au. So upcoming activities to remind you of, or to let you know if you haven't been reading Trunkline. We are holding a Manna retreat March 25th to 27th. This is open to all Manna affiliated researchers, partners and advisors. So anyone that's affiliated with Manna is very welcome to come. If you're not an affiliate yet, just fill out the affiliate form via our website and become an affiliate, and you'll get all of that information. There's going to be a pretty quick turnaround on responding to information about the retreat, because obviously March 25th is like just around the corner, particularly with how quickly the year is going. So definitely respond really quickly to that. There obviously is challenges with getting places, and for people that are paid for by Manna, so have some funding coming to them, their travel will be covered for the Manna retreat, and so we do need to get that organised really quickly, and so help Kat out and be quick on responding to those emails. If you're affiliated with Manna and you're not in any way funded by Manna, please come along anyway. We really understand that there is a cost burden associated with that, but we really value your input. So if you can find any way to come along, please do. Obviously the catering and costs during the day are covered, but you'll just have to cover your travel and accommodation, and we acknowledge that can be prohibitive for some. In December of this year, we are going to hold a conference, which, as I said, Russell will be chairing the conference committee. The committee will be made up of our ECRs and MCRs who have or will put up their hands for that. So it's a great opportunity to get involved and have something you can put on your on your CV that you've done and participated in. So please have a look out for that information. Really what we want to do there is showcase regional mental health research. So some of that will have happened through Manna Institute, obviously, and our affiliated researchers, but others can come along and participate in that conference as well. It's a fantastic opportunity to connect and work together with others. So schedule that in. It will be dates to be set, but in the first, definitely within the first 10 days of December, because obviously people then start to go on leave. So I also wanted to highlight for you that we're really, really keen to spread the work of Manna across wherever you go out there in the community. If you're accepted to present a paper or a poster on any topic related to, to regional mental health, At any conference this year, you can apply to Manna for a $500 scholarship to assist with the costs of that conference. So please keep that in mind. It's just, there'll be a simple online form available through our website, so that you can do that. All that we ask in return for the $500 is to acknowledge that you were partially funded by Manna Institute by showing this slide at the end of your presentation. The QR code obviously takes people through to our website, and we really want to share the word and make sure that Manna Institute is, front and foremost in people's minds when they're thinking about regional mental health and training. So there's also a thank you slide. Should you like to use this at the end of a presentation and say thank you to your audience as well, so you can hold it up there at the end of any presentation and have it as your background. Obviously, that's a really useful way for people to be able to see what we're about, and to scan that code or to type in our web address. You can customize this to put on other QR codes. It might be to your publications and things that you want people to look at. But yeah, as I said, it's a great way to show that huge collaboration across the Run Network partners, as well as our foundation partners in ANU, Lifeline, Direct, and Everymind. So that's the end of my slides. And as you see, I am using the thank you slide to show you that you can leave it up. But I won't leave it up because I will have a look and see what we have in the chat and answer any questions you might have. Okay, so they're from Liz with some more helpful information. So thank you, Liz, for covering that off whilst I was talking. Any questions from anybody, or if I've missed anything from the CI group, please jump in as well. Nothing. Everyone's stunned by our success. Well, then it looks like if there's nothing further, oh, thanks, Rebecca. Funny that you should say that. We have been looking at Manna polo shirts with the logo as well, because obviously those of you who were at the launch or started early on with Manna Institute will have received a t-shirt. Some people also have some vests, but we really, like, any time that you use any of that advertising material, it gets our name out there. And polo shirts are probably a little bit dressier, so it's something that you can wear when you go out and about. So yeah, do look out for a sizing for that, so that we're getting the right sizes for people as well, so that we can get our name out there when you're out and about. Just as a little funny side note, our prior Pro Vice-Chancellor Indigenous, Joe Fraser, who's on our program leadership group, moved from UNE to the University of the Sunshine Coast. And in the week prior to him starting his formal role, he was just like hanging out incognito on the campus and happened to come across the lovely Dan Wadsworth wearing, and I think it might have even been, was it with you, David? He was sitting with somebody and in their Manna t-shirts, and could sort of sit and listen in and see that we're out and about on campus. So that was a fantastic opportunistic reminder that it does work to have these, to be wearing our merchandise.
I'm modelling it today for you, Myf.
Ah, thank you, Dan. See, I can always rely on you to have your Manna shirt on.
It doesn't always stay on, Myf, don't worry. I would encourage people to join our Shut Up and Write sessions for the HDR, well, not just for the HDR community of practice. I use it as well. It's a great time to connect with some of our other researchers. We have a really supportive chat, and yeah, thank you to everyone who's come along to those, and also thank you to everyone who has offered to deliver some sessions to our HDR cohort. They're going to be great.
Fabulous. Thanks, Dan. Well, I can't see anybody's hands up, and thank you everybody for putting thanks in the chat. This really is a collaboration, and it's the contribution of everybody across our entire network that makes this a success. So, you know, the longer that you can stay involved and be part of what our activities, the better. The more relationships that we build with each other, the more success we'll all have in the future. So yeah, I'd like to put the thanks back to everybody for their fantastic contributions so far. A busy year ahead, but also we'll start to see the fruits of our labour as more grants are successful, as more HDR students pass through their confirmation of candidature, and we bring on even more new HDR students, early career researchers, mid-career researchers, and senior researchers across universities beyond those already involved. So thank you so much for your time today, really appreciate it. And now you get an extra like 10 minutes for a little break before your next meeting and staring into Zoom. So thanks very much, everybody, and really looking forward to seeing you all at the retreat in just over a month's time. So see you then.